The Accidental Entrepreneur is brought to you with the help of our sponsor, AWeber, the world's leading small business email marketing and automation service provider. Since 1998, AWeber has helped more than 1 million small businesses and entrepreneurs through its suite of web-based email marketing, automation tools, and education. AWeber, the best option when it comes to marketing your business. The podcast is also brought to you by the Alternative Board. Since 1989, the Alternative Board, or TAB, has been one of the leading peer advisory and business coaching organizations for independent business owners and CEOs across the world. By facilitating peer advisory boards, private one-on-one coaching, and strategic planning services, TAB helps business owners improve their businesses in ways that change their lives. And be sure to check out our affiliate sponsor, One of One Productions, the New Jersey-based podcast studio that produces and edits both audio and video podcasts. They sell equipment for the avid podcaster and have even created a guesting kit exclusively for our listeners. And be sure to support the podcast by ordering some logo merchandise from our online store. Listen to all of our sponsors' commercials later in this episode and follow their links in the show notes to learn more about their products and services. All right, welcome whoever's listening and whoever's watching out there. This is the another live episode of the show. I got two new friends from the UK over across the pond, so to speak. And this is the last live episode we're doing this year. So we won't be doing one in December. They'll tune in. Maybe we'll pick it up again in January, depending on how it goes. So if you are listening on your favorite directory, please leave us a 5-star review. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to subscribe and like the podcast so we can keep bringing quality guests like we have today with Elliot and Dom Chapman. So let's get on with the show.
The information provided in these episodes is for entertainment purposes only. It is not a guarantee of success or to be construed as advice of any kind. You should always seek advice from local licensed professionals before making any decisions.
The dictionary defines an entrepreneur as a person who organizes and manages any enterprise, especially a business, usually with considerable initiative and risk. People often start a business without much choice, perhaps due to a job loss or just being dissatisfied at work, and they come up with an idea they just know can be successful. They become entrepreneurs by accident. That is to say, their success or failure happens by accident, not with intention. My name is Mitch Beinhacker. I'm a corporate attorney and a business advisor. You're listening to The Accidental Entrepreneur, my podcast about how to achieve success on purpose, not by accident. Join me along with our monthly guests, where we share our knowledge and help you get a hold of your business. And now on to today's episode. All right, guys, Elliot and Dom, thanks for joining me. I know I think we had to reschedule at one point. Was that right?
Yeah, I think we had. Thanks for having us on.
No, glad
thank
you guys
you.
can be here. And I know you're not as tired as me because it's probably the afternoon over there. So that's good. But why don't I know you guys have a bit of a sports background, you have a tech background. And even though people watching, you guys are young, you are in venture capital and you've invested in companies and owned companies and all kinds of cool stuff like that. So, but maybe we go back a little bit, spend half the show talking about your backgrounds and then do some commercials and then talk about some of the companies you guys are working with. Elliot, you want to take it away and then Dom will jump in?
Yeah, sure. So we go back to post-college, so sort of 18, college being like the end of high school in the US, not quite university as it's called here. So okay. 18, left high school and didn't really know what I wanted to do.
Is college different than university in the UK? In England?
So you call it college, right?
Yeah.
Over here it's called university. Yeah, there's a period in between leaving school and going to uni, which is called college, which is like 2 years of doing what's over here called A levels.
Got it.
So did that. Was playing in a soccer academy, and didn't really know what I wanted to do. Didn't want to just go to university for the sake of going to university. And one of my coaches in the academy, we had a good relationship. I was his captain, and he said, listen, he knew that I wasn't sure if I should go to university. And he said, I'm going to open up a local soccer school. If you're in between things, why don't you come and help me set it up? which
The
was
coach,
much,
things like that?
yeah, exactly that. Like help set it up. I had to go and recruit schools to come on board. So turned out to be an unbelievable opportunity without me really realizing what I was doing to good grounding of how to grow a business.
Yeah.
So I was the person who was sort of metaphorically knocking on the school's doors to try and get them into our ecosystem. And over a period of just shy of 3 years, we grew that from nothing to the number one local soccer school in our region.
So it
We
was
were
like a training
the
academy, like the schools would send
exactly.
players for. Okay, that's cool. And you had no business background. I mean, you learned a little bit in high school, but not much of anything.
I didn't learn anything in high school. It was a miracle that I made it to the end of
Yeah,
school,
you
to
learned
be
how to
honest with
get
you.
through, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
literally.
yeah,
So that
yeah.
for me was
I think that those 2 years of college, like, are I think like they should do more of that in the United States. If kids go to university, they have no idea like what they're
yeah.
doing in their life. They can't even, they're
And
just wet behind the ears. So
I left. Dom and I both went to the same college, but obviously different times. And it's completely different over here. You can stay on at your school and do your A levels,
okay,
or you can go to a brand new college, a brand new school, and start from scratch, which is exactly what I did because I wanted to get out. I wanted to learn something new. I wanted to be in a brand new environment. But I struggled. I was the youngest in my school year. I'd only just turned 16, and it went from a lot of support in school to completely independent learning. And I was nowhere near ready enough for that level of education. Um, so I did struggle at college. I managed to get my A levels, and I managed to get offers to just managed to get offers to go to university, but it was just never. It was never for me. The opportunity for me at 18, 19, 20 to play football, coach football, and just be in that environment for as long as possible was much more attractive than going to sit in another classroom and have my head
right,
in books. It's just
yeah,
not me. I'm not that guy.
right,
So I did that, and we grew that to the number one local soccer school. We had partnerships with a couple of professional clubs down on the south coast, so AFC Bournemouth, Southampton, two Premier League clubs, acting as their feeder. So we would send them players once they got to a certain level. I then got headhunted by a firm out in the US to come and do exactly the same thing, but on a national scale. So at 21, that was too good an opportunity to turn down.
to
So I
grow a
moved out.
national organization for soccer training
Yeah, yeah,
particularly in
exactly.
the United States. It's getting big now, and yeah,
It's getting big. There was much more money behind it. Like still in the UK, it's still very much a grassroots sport.
okay,
Whereas what I learned when I went out to the US is everything is funded. Everything has got money behind it
oh, big time. If there's money
massively,
in it, it'll be funded.
hugely funded. So,
Yeah,
the practice fields, everything that we had was grade A. It was best in class.
yeah,
So it was again a phenomenal environment for me to learn, to grow. I was responsible for about 40-ish coaches and about 600 players. Which when I look back at the age of 21, at the age of 21 at the time, I just thought it was relatively normal. I look
right.
back now and I think that's
No,
quite an achievement.
yeah, not definitely not normal.
um,
Soccer or football outside of the United States um, was big when I was young, and there was a professional league, and the whole thing folded. Like it
yep.
wasn't like it is now. And now globally, you can watch games overseas and the whole thing. So it's really come back in a
Yeah, it's
big way.
huge.
Yeah,
It's huge, and it even was big and growing when I was out there at the time. This was
yeah,
back in 2014. So I did my year, got offered to stay, decided to come home. Felt like I'd sort of done everything I wanted to and achieved everything I wanted to achieve out in the States. Came back, and my dad at the time was trying to
this year
persuade me.
21 now, Elliot.
Yeah, 21,
Okay,
21 and a half at the time. And my dad he had an IT management consultancy,
got it.
successful. Come work for me. I'm like, nah, no, I don't want to work with you. I don't want to work for you at all. So he sort of, over the course of about 4 weeks, he was persuading me, and I decided to go. I was like, okay, I'll meet with your business partner and let's just see what happens. And it turned out to be one of the best things that I did. I always had this
But
consensus
did you
that
have a background in?
no,
Do you have a background in IT or anything?
nope,
Yeah, sure. What the hell?
nope. And Dom
Now,
will
how
when he
old
gets.
how old were you at this? How old was
I'm
Dom?
surprised. I'm surprised El's even here. He's even being able to log on to the laptop.
So, Dom, how old were you at this point? He's 21. How many years are you younger than him?
I was 19 at this point.
So you were
Yeah,
like
so
doing college or figuring your life out at that point?
I just started my first business actually at 19.
Okay.
So which was in design and tech, but we'll jump into that in a little bit.
Yeah, in a minute. I just want to get the time frame. Okay, so Elliot, you go
Yeah,
to work
yeah.
for your dad with no experience except you're his son.
Yep.
And okay, so here's
Yeah,
my
no.
son. He's going to handle your IT. What's his background? He's got no background in IT. He's just unemployed. Oh, great. Sure, come on in and mess up all our computers.
Yeah, so should probably caveat that I wasn't doing any of the IT. I was doing all the selling, selling the services, working
You were
with
setting up the deals, and then you said, "Here, guys, you take it
exactly.
over."
I do all
Right.
the
That's what
I do all the
salesmen
sexy
here do.
stuff.
My son's in tech. My son's like a programmer. The salesmen go in, they promise everything to the client, and they leave it to the tech guys to figure out. And 90% of the time, they're like, "We can't do that."
Yeah,
But
that's me.
He
right,
still does it now.
right.
Um,
Yeah, it's pretty.
So yeah, I worked there for 5 years. Sort of worked my way up through the organisation, and that was when Dom and I started to sort of cross paths in terms of our business journey. I was running the company, trying to help sell it, trying to really grow its presence, and struggling. And Dom and I actually shared an office at the time. And when Dom tells
You were with the company at that point.
he was at a different company, but we were just sharing an office. And when Dom tells his story, I will cut off at a time where we will cross paths, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
But we then eventually started helping each other grow each other's companies through these various techniques, which turned out to be what is now Social Chats, which was our first agency and our first company that we started together. So that is a nice little segue where I'll throw the ball over to Dom.
All right, Tom. So let's
Amazing.
start. You were born in a cabin in the south end of England or something?
Yeah,
Pretty much. Yeah. So similar journey to Elle at the start. I went to the same college, so moved on from school to college, and still didn't know what I want to do. I got an opportunity to do a sort of a short internship at it's called Specsavers in the UK. It's sort of the largest optician in the UK. So I think they've got about 1,800 stores.
Eyeglass.
And I did,
Yeah.
yes, eyeglass stores. Yeah.
Got it.
And started there, did a sort of a 4-week internship. And then they asked me to stay on. So stayed on, and my role was sort of innovation and commercial. So I was working directly with the team. So very lucky to be in that role, but my role was to come up with new products and new services that could basically save money within the stores and drive new customers.
Okay.
So worked with a small team over a year and ran what was called hackathons at the time. So I'd get the marketing team, the opticians, developers in a room for 24 hours. I'd give them a problem, and then we would come up with the solution, build the first version of the app, and then ship it to a few stores within 24 hours. So we had like a real
test in the store.
Yeah. To test in a couple of stores. Yeah.
Room to provide them food and water, sleep for 24 hours, see what they come up with, and then give it a shot, test it.
Pretty much. There's a lot of pizza.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good
if
brain
you know
food.
developers. Yeah, if you know developers, that's what they like.
Yeah, that's what they like, exactly.
Yeah, so did that, and then as I was doing that, I got the opportunity to do a few things, a few sort of first versions of apps, a few designs, and with a friend from college, we launched our first sort of design agency. That started to grow in itself alongside Specsavers. So after a year, I left Specsavers.
Why did you leave, John?
There was a bit of crossover with my work at Specsavers and my first business, and had to mute. bit of conflict of interest and had to mutually leave Specsavers, and get walked out the front door in front of 400 people at the age of 19. Yeah.
Right.
So that was fun and humbling.
Yeah, I'm sure. Gentlemen, he's going to escort you to your car.
It was.
Okay, we'll make sure you leave the building.
Yeah, it was really like in the films where you're walking out with like a box, with all your stuff in it. It was one of those. But that sort of spurred me on to sort of launch and grow the agency.
Right.
And then within that agency, we actually came up with an idea to sort of launch a piece of tech. So we spanned the business into a tech platform, used the same team. We just sort of changed everyone's job role slightly. And then we decided to raise a round of investment from sort of angels, raised that round, launched the product. And then this is sort of where mine and Elle's path started to cross. If I did it again, I'd do it differently, but we built the product and now I needed to sell it instead of doing any market validation, any research, speaking to potential customers. We just had this naivety that if we speak to them, they're going to tell us what they want and what they think they want instead of what they actually need.
Yeah, a lot of people skip that step. Why is nobody buying my product? Because the best companies I work with and the best people are always testing and asking, and because you're usually wrong about the reason that your customer is buying the product.
Exactly.
It's a humbling thing, and you like developed it. You knew why they needed it. And you're all digging your heels in like this is. So the agency was like a marketing and PR agency for companies. It wasn't a development agency, was it?
It was a design. It was sort of a design and development agency. So we sort of more prototypes, more design led, more than the concept of actually building products. We would do the designs, we would do video production. We'd do the concepts of it. But
were they like hard products, or were they more IT software?
IT app based, yeah. So we did a lot of like user interface, user experience sort of type work. So that side of our product was amazing. But what we didn't think about is of a buyer. So this comes from the sales. Inexperience of us selling, and understanding the market that we were in, which was we were going into the recruitment market. And we didn't understand really how all the softwares hang together, and to get into a company, you need to be, have this open integration with all these different businesses. It's a whole, enterprise software is a whole different beast to selling, one specific piece of software or an agency.
Isn't that where what they call APIs come in, right? Those are the little programs that kind of connect the bridges and make them speak to each other.
Yep. So it's So we launched it with no APIs. Tried to sell into all these businesses, and they were like, "Do you integrate with this? Do you integrate with this?" Because we needed to push to all these different places for this to work. And we were like, "No, it doesn't." So then we had to go and build all of the APIs to integrate with all these different systems.
Well, everything's really data now, right? I mean, that's my son, his major is informatics, which I don't even know if they have that over by you, and I never heard of it. It's like a new area, but it's basically programming all these apps in the database and the data that goes within the data tables. That's really what drives our whole society. If you have an app, the app's going to some data table, and it's pulling data, and then it's using that data, and then it needs to send it somewhere, right? And so if it doesn't go anywhere, they're like, well, we can't use your software because we need the data.
I think the speed it moves at as well. Like Dom, you from like version 1 of the app to the end product. And the tech was already near enough legacy tech.
You need an unbelievable development team to be working on it 24/7 to stay ahead of the game. And if you don't have that, then you're just going to be behind within a couple of years, especially with it's constantly moving. And some of the sales cycles, it took us 12 months to sell in, and by the time we'd sold it in, we needed to build a whole new version for it, and change it. So it's a constant cycle with that software. Hence why I'm still a little bit scarred around SaaS and software.
Right.
Hence why we've gone
This
down
is
the
like-
agency route for the last 4 5. It's therapy. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, you guys still aren't together yet at this point, right? You're kind of working together, but you're in different companies.
Yeah, so this is where we've got a shared office. I've built sort of the first version of the system. I've gone to a few marketing agencies for advice and a few little campaigns, and nothing's come back. So I've got minimal budget left to actually start to produce some results and actually get some customers using it. I come to El because obviously he's in the sales side of the business, and we sort of put our heads together and work out a system that actually sort of automates building relationships at scale. So we use some of the tech team within my business, some of the expertise from El and his business, and we started to put together these automated systems that would actually build relationships. So that was sort of the first version of Social Chaps. El, I don't know if you want to chime in.
Yeah, you want to tell us what Social Chaps is? That was really your first
Dom, you've
joint
massively
company.
inflated my role in creating that tech. So really, really thank you. Maybe sound much smarter than I actually am. So Social Chaps is a B2B lead generation agency, and we operate on LinkedIn and email, and constantly evolving. The strategies, the tech, the methodologies are constantly evolving. What I try and do is create creative, or come up with methodologies to try and engage your end buyer. So whoever your prospect is, so not just spamming them with, 20,000. Create interesting content. They want to speak to you. That's going to differ from. But what we're trying to do is create long-lasting, leave the door ajar to help our prospects or help our customers meaningful relationships. So that's what Social Chaps does.
Social media platform content marketing is what it is.
Ish. It's more of
content marketing, social media.
Okay. Go on, Dom.
Yeah. So we drive on LinkedIn and email. So it's not our own sort of platform, but what it and what it allows us to do is just build those relationships through content, through events, through webinars, through masterclasses.
Right.
And we have the specialist,
like a lead gen funnel where you're bringing people into the world,
exactly,
introducing them to your product and educating them, pulling them out the bottom when they're ready to do business.
Absolutely.
Are you focused on any specific industries that you work better with than others, or are you kind of all over the board?
No. It's fairly.
I think.
Go on, Dom. We're crossing over each other. Agencies, consultancies. We have dabbled in some sort of SaaS and typically agencies, consultancies. Hence, into the agency world.
Got it. So you're helping other agencies generate leads, business owners that'll work with you.
Exactly that. Yeah. So exactly that.
Okay. So all right. So that company's still around, right? It's still doing stuff, helping people. Okay. So
yes.
Tell me, what's the spin-off or because now you guys have several companies, and I know you're buying companies because of the capital organization, right? Chapman Capital. So what's
so we we launched Social Chaps in 2019 once I'd exited and Elliot exited the sort of family business. So we both exited at similar times, and then decided to fully launch Social Chaps, which was the business, sort of was the idea that we had. We scaled that pretty quickly in 12 months. So scaled that to about 23 people within 12 months during COVID. We then got an offer for someone to buy Social Chaps, and their idea, sort of strategy, they were a private equity firm, and they wanted to use Social Chaps to actually be an anchor agency. So all of the other businesses that they buy, they would plug Social Chaps in to scale them and increase revenue and increase customers. So it made sense. we went through that whole journey of being bought right up to the final point, and then we decided to pull out. A number of different reasons for that, but what we did like is the idea and the concept of being able to increase revenue and sort of profitability for other businesses. Where we were as a model is we were just on retainer monthly retainers for our customers. We were bringing them in 1, 2, 3 million a year through our systems, but we were not seeing the back end of that. So that's where Chapman Capital was launched. And then we bought our first business, Speak On Podcasts, about a year ago, El, close to a year ago.
Exactly 13 months ago to the day.
So you basically almost completed an acquisition or an exit, or I mean, I guess you would have stayed on, but and then said, hey, maybe we can do this better ourselves, basically.
It was exactly, yeah. We went quite a long way through the journey. Things change, and when you go through an acquisition process, the goalposts are always moving.
Yep.
We decided that it wasn't for us, and really liked the idea of what they were trying to do. 12, 18 months on from there to pick the right opportunity. That first transaction.
Yeah, it's hard to find. I mean, you gotta kiss a lot of frogs before you find your prince, right? So you guys probably review a lot of companies and they're just junk, or they're just too messed up, or it's not your bailiwick, or whatever happens to be, right? So
yeah, I think we had about 65 calls in 6 weeks at one point with new agencies that we're talking to. Yeah, mainly El, to be fair.
I was going to say that there's a very raw.
So what attracted you to this company, Speak On Podcasts?
So we were in, which is a massive, who I guess sort of validated that they were a company, but the founders and the personality that sort of sits within the business, and that's largely why we didn't do a transaction before we bought Speak On Podcasts. It wasn't often the finances. A lot of it wasn't just quite the right fit. Whether it's the company or the people, largely people.
Yeah.
Just wasn't quite the right fit. And as soon as we spoke to Mark and Jakob, clicked. Like, we had a conversation. We got introduced on like a Monday afternoon. First conversation, which lasted 2 hours. Dom and I jumped off a call and we're like, I like these guys. I like what. By Wednesday or Thursday, I think we'd had an initial, and we knew that we had to move quickly because at the table, and from first conversation was 6 weeks, which is fast.
Got it. Well, don't you think some of that has to do with, like, if you met them? So you said you had 65 calls in 6 months, right? If you met them on call number 2, you might not have been in the place where you've been through a lot and knew what you were looking for and knew what hit you right. It's like buying your first house, right? You go and look at your first house and you're like, this is great. And then you look at 12 houses and you get a different perspective on, what makes sense and what feels right and so forth. Isn't that kind of true?
Completely true.
Yeah, that's a very good analogy. Yeah, it's a really good analogy, actually. I've never thought about it like that, but it makes complete sense.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
Yeah.
Like you said, you do have to kiss a lot of frogs.
Yeah, absolutely. And timing is a lot of things, and the way you meet people, and you're open to it and all that kind of stuff. So you finished that acquisition. So you guys now are you own Speak On Podcasts 100%, bought them out, or did you just invest in the company and you're part owners?
Yeah. So I can't see your face, El. So
yeah, you know what? When this gets recorded, you'll see both of you clearly because it works on your end. It's just a live thing. Maybe it's on internet slow speeders.
Yeah. So we're majority shareholders, but both both the old co-founders are still shareholders as well, and still sit on the board, and still help drive the business forward, which is great because podcasting is such a niche industry. To have their knowledge and specialism in and around what we do is really key to the growth of the business.
Yeah, no, it's a competitive space. I mean, there's whatever millions of podcasts. A lot of them are, didn't do 400 episodes or whatever, but I get contacted by agencies all the time. Now, there's probably a handful of the regulars to me now, but I mean, it's ridiculous. Once you have enough episodes, everybody and their grandmother wants to put a person on your show. Yeah. And I don't know where they find it, whatever. So it's a competitive space.
It's a competitive space.
And a lot of it.
Go on, I'll go this time, Dom.
Go ahead, Elliot.
It's a competitive. It's about Speak on Podcasts is that they do things in terms of the outreach, how we profile, building specific pages for clients, not just a spray and pray. Strategic with how we work with our. We shopped around when we were going through the acquisition process to see what the competitors were doing. Is this normal? And there was a clear difference between what Speak on Podcasts do and what a lot of the other markets, which for us is a massive sign that there's clear differences, which made it even more attractive.
Now your clients it's kind of a B2C, B2B hybrid, right? Because you may be representing individuals, maybe they're authors, maybe they're speakers, whatever, and you're getting them on shows. But also if you're representing a company, you're still usually representing like the executive. You can't put a business on a show, right? It's got to be a person. So you're kind of it's kind of a hybrid. So are more like, I'm curious about the mix of business. Is the business more like companies you do business with and you're putting their executives on shows, or are you representing more like, let's call them solopreneurs? Because that's what I get a lot. I mean, that's what I want. I don't want people that are corporate executives, working for a company. I want to own the company, started the company, exited the company, whatever. What's the mix of clients of Speak on Podcasts roughly?
It is quite a blend, yeah. And I guess this is the beauty of the team as well, is we have relationships with sort of 1,300 hosts now. So we wouldn't put, an executive, we wouldn't pitch an executive to you, whereas a lot of agencies will they'll get a client in and they'll just send it to all the people on their mailer list.
And whether I want them or not, right?
Yeah, exactly. Where we will match, we will almost do a perfect match and look at that instead of that spray and pray approach, which means we can work with, the bigger companies and the executives, and there is a place for those guys, and there is podcasts who want those guys on.
Of course.
And then there is obviously the solopreneurs, but I'd say it's a pretty even split across. Obviously, it's interesting working with bigger companies and putting multiple different executives on the show. Usually, obviously, the initiative is from a marketing department, so you need to get more buy-in from those executives to jump on podcasts and split. If you're doing a few podcasts a month, it does take up time.
Yeah.
So it's
you're talking from experience, Tom?
Internally. I am. Yeah. It's a different sell internally to get executives on than solopreneurs, where they can use it as content. They want to speak about their journey, and they want to pitch their product.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so then the company, and we're going to take a break to recognize the few sponsors paying a little bit of money. So, but when we come back, I want to talk more about, the things you see in the venture capital space, the kind of businesses that are out there. How do you guys evaluate a business? How should other people do that if that's something that they want to use as a strategy to grow their company or their portfolio or whatever? Does that make sense?
Awesome. Absolutely.
All right. So let's go to a little commercial here.
Here's a word from our sponsors.
Looking to market and grow your business? Or perhaps you're just getting started and want to hit the ground running? AWeber is the best choice for online email marketing and automation of your business. From maintaining a subscriber list to drip campaigns and landing pages, AWeber gives you tools and integrations that make marketing easy and fun. As our partner and sponsor, we use all their tools to promote the podcast and market our law firm. AWeber, the best alternative for online marketing. For over 30 years, the Alternative Board, or TAB, has built a thriving community of forward-thinking CEOs and business owners who want to radically improve their companies. Through unique combinations of one-on-one business coaching, participation in monthly TAB board meetings with other non-competing owners, a suite of strategic tools, and customized strategic planning workshops, TAB membership can deliver greater strength to your business and a better work-life balance for you and your family. All packaged in a streamlined and affordable service that the people at TAB invite you to try risk-free. Maybe you're looking to get into podcasting, or you just want to market your business. Maybe you want to do it for enjoyment, or because you have a message you want to get out there. One of One Productions is a New Jersey-based studio just over the George Washington Bridge that caters to the booming business of podcasting. They offer a comfortable atmosphere using the latest technology available to record your podcast. And they are a full-service media company offering both audio and video production services, creating both audio and video podcasts, as well as video shorts for business and personal use. Professional audio equipment packages are available through their website for all budgets, and be sure to check out their podcast guesting kit, created especially for our listeners.
Follow the link in the show notes to learn more about all of our sponsors. And now back to our show.
Okay, we are back from our little commercial break. I think I got to re-record some of that stuff. Some of my inflections sound like I'm drunk when I'm like saying that stuff. So
Just like you need to sort.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Can have a show on bourbon, and that's my thing. I don't know what you guys drink, but bourbon's my bourbon, scotch, other whiskeys. All right, so we were talking before about, or going to get into, I mean, you guys are young, but your strategy is to kind of grow a portfolio and run companies, and I assume you're looking to kind of, you don't always have to do this to the listeners, right? But it's a good strategy to kind of purchase or get involved in the businesses that complement your other businesses, right? It makes one drives the other, like the acquisition you were going to get involved with because they wanted your company because it drove their portfolio. Is that kind of an approach you're taking at this point?
Kind of to some degree. So these that we're involved with do have complementary services, but what is we are keeping each acquisition or investment completely separate. So we're not doing any mergers. We're not per se.
Right. No parent company, right? Okay, they're all separate. Okay.
I mean, there is a parent company, which is Chapman Capital, but the investor is individual. What we do sell. So, for example, in one of our companies, there may be can't do any social media, for example. We've then got the ability to cross sell that service and make introductions from sister.
Sure.
How we make it work, but we wouldn't say there's sort of complementary services. There's no, you just say we're missing now a web agency. We need to go after a web agency.
Right. Got it.
Doing things in a much more reactive and case by case basis purposely. Because what we found with the investments and the acquisitions that we've made, opportunities often get presented and you can't really choose whether you want or you don't want to be involved. It's often the ones that you need to jump at are too good to be true, and you need to just make it work and somehow get that over the line. The ones where there's more time, typically there's a reason why people are trying to sell, or
that's you need to figure that out, right? Because whatever they're telling you is not the reason that they're not selling because the business is worth $1 gazillion and they want money. They're selling it because they're having trouble. That may be something in their personal life. Maybe it has nothing to do with the business, but that's your due diligence, right? I mean, that's what you have to figure out.
Yeah, exactly. And for us, filing companies based on, can we come in and make an impact growth perspective? And Dom can jump in. People, processes. The other thing we're looking at, so first is, can we productize, can we scale? The second is, what are the other, and because Dom and I have, we're brothers, we've obviously grown up together. he knows mine. I know his weaknesses. He knows mine. Metaphorical bed with somebody else. We've got to really, and the truth is, not
Right.
every relationship would. So they're the major two things we
Yeah.
sort of profile a business on.
Tom, you got anything to add to that? And then I got some more questions for you.
Yeah, not too much, to be fair. I think it's when you're going through that initial phase and really trying to understand if it's well run, it's kind of difficult to lift the lid without being in it. So it's really asking some key questions and just simple things that you can do, like inquire on their website and see the process of how it comes back when you inquire. All those little things are good tellers to how the business is run and how it's operated. But yeah, it is kind of difficult. And as El said, it's more about the relationship with the people. A lot of things, process and system led, are quite easy to implement and change in a short period of time.
Sure.
Yeah. So I think
without the right people, that's not going to work. You can put in all the
exactly.
processes, right?
Exactly.
So
exactly.
my question for you, Tom, and Elliot, I believe you're still here. Tom, you got to get him a better internet package. I think you got to upgrade him.
I'm not paid enough.
But yeah, exactly. There must be things that you see on a regular basis that business owners do right, and things you see them doing consistently wrong, which makes them. That doesn't mean that the acquisition is not attractive to you, because you could say, well, we could fix that. But I was wondering what, from your experience, does that help people listening who are entrepreneurs, think about their businesses? What are the consistent things that you see business owners doing right? You're like, this guy gets it and he's good at what he does, and other things that you're like, they just don't get it.
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
not doing the right thing. Those types of things.
Absolutely. For me, the key one, especially in the agency and service space where we're at, a lot of the founders are the specialists within their business. So they're doing the sales and then they're doing the delivery. And what happens when you get to a certain point in these sort of businesses, we get to 7, 8, 900,000 a year. So a good sized business, you've got a little team. And what happens then is you're doing all the sales, and then you've sold, and then you deliver, and then you stay at optimum, and then you lose clients, and then you end up on this sort of wheel where you're doing the sales, delivering, lose a client, then you have to go back to sales. And what operators and good business owners do is they'll set up really strong operating procedures and empower the team so they can just focus on sales, pass that knowledge onto the team, let their egos go. They shouldn't be delivering on client accounts at that size, and let the team actually deliver that.
So basically, you're talking about a business owner who maybe gets started, right? Does everything himself, which is often the case, right? When you're just when you have one assistant, but never gets to the point where they start to relinquish and pass on, and they're still trying to do everything themselves, but doing 700, 800, 900, $1 million in sales. Even as a lawyer, I can't do. My fingers would be bleeding if I was doing $1 million of business on my own.
So, and oftentimes they will have a team who do some of the work, but I think as founders, we feel like we are the best equipped to be able to deliver, and passing and relinquishing control is really, really difficult because you want it to be perfect. And what often happens is you will pass it over to someone else, maybe with not as much of the knowledge as you think you're giving them. And me and Elle are both culprits of this as well. We've done it multiple times over. So you pass it on. You pass it over. They don't deliver as well as you would, and then you take it back and you never give it to anyone again. And you sort of,
I can do this myself. It's easier.
Yeah,
and it doesn't help grow the business.
Exactly. Elle, I don't know if you want to chime in there.
Isn't that, I don't mean to jump ahead of Elliot, but he'll chime in a minute. Isn't that kind of why processes are so important? Like building in, whether they're written manuals or processes, or how you, process a customer, how you find a new lead or whatever. Because if you don't, you're never going to be able to transfer it to the next. Or if the guy died, or got sick, and he can't do that, then what would you do? I think, but those kind of things you can
unless the owner is very reluctant, right? Those are the kind of things you can remedy. Those are the kind of things you could say, you know what, this business is doing well. We can triple their sales if their processes are in place, and you can do that, right? What kind of, well, let Elliot comment on that first, and then I'd like to get into like what kind of things you see that are harder to remedy, maybe impossible to remedy. But Elliot, maybe you got a comment.
Well, you're both absolutely spot on. So what we've see is created essentially a knowledge bank. Every single process, everything that takes place in that business, there is a process behind it, and it's documented. Whether that's written, we also, it's, you know, you can actually walk somebody through a video. So
Right.
remember requesting time off or requesting holiday, a service, how you interact with clients. There is a everything that we do across the businesses. So we've templated that.
Got it. Yeah. You know how many businesses I work with in the United States, and they're decent sized business. They're doing, you know, a few $1 million of sales. They don't even have an employee handbook. Forget about a process, you know, processing a customer. Yeah. And there are laws, obviously, that require that you do that anyway. So,
Yeah.
No, people are, yeah. So, I asked you before. So, what are the things you see in companies that are harder to remedy? Maybe why you didn't move forward with further consideration.
I can chime in here, Al, and you can chime in. For me, it's around the founder and the business owner, and a lot of the time it's to do with their ego and how they perceive the business, how much the business is worth, how they treat the team, how the team is. A lot of businesses, how the team is, how the relationship is with the clients, it comes from the founder and the business. Yeah, it comes from the top. And we see a lot of founders with a sort of this ego that they've created this business that has all this value, and a lot of the time it doesn't. It's very top heavy. It's all founder led. So, you know, they want all this money for the business and they want to leave tomorrow, but everything runs through them. And however much you try and explain to them, it's not possible. You know, it's just absolutely not possible for them to get that acquisition.
Right. Yeah. No, I definitely. Here too, it's the same way. People overvalue their business, especially if they're service-based businesses. They really don't equip their business. The business is them. It's not a business. So you can't buy a person, you know. And if you get a lot of people that aren't really on board, or they're in the wrong place, or they're the wrong employees because they just kind of, the good ones left and the bad ones just had no choice. Those are hard things to remedy. Do you find when you get involved in the business that the business owners regularly have a business plan or some sort of strategic plan or things in writing or stuff like that? Or is it very, very sparse and rare?
Yeah,
I'll take this. I'll take this, Dom.
Yeah.
Not often would you see a long-term vision or a strategic plan for the company. The high level, what they want to achieve, and is it well documented in terms of to be a business plan? But I'll be honest, that's not necessarily so long as they can articulate what they want to achieve and the vision of the company, the values of the company, somehow defining what the culture's like. A set of principles or a set of values is as in long-term strategic plan. People can get lost in what we're doing in 12 months time. Pointless planning.
Well, if they use them properly, they would convert from a business plan to like processes that run the business. And that's one of the problems that Dom mentioned, that they don't have these things in place. It's because they never go to work in their plan if they even have one. But does that make due diligence a little challenging? Like you have to kind of figure it out on your own to figure out, you know, what is this really what they're saying it is?
Very much so. So we skills and backgrounds. So we'll sort of assess and culture and the values based on the interaction with you do get a like in anything in life, you get a gut feel on whether you're being lied to or whether these people are genuine. Numbers, and as soon as we see the numbers, you can quite quickly get a gut feel on the state of the business and told the truth. And then Dom lifts the lid on a knowledge bank that they can share. Do they have documentation? How well documented are things? So between myself and Dom, we then get together and say, yeah, listen, this is something that's worth pursuing, or price here, because there's actually a lot of work that we need to do because orders they think it is.
Yeah, well, if you're, and a lot of entrepreneurs they avoid financials and numbers and so forth because it's not creative, it's not fun. But yeah, I mean, if you know how to read a financial statement and you know how to dig into this stuff, it reveals a lot. And business owners don't always run their businesses with the expectation of selling or exiting. They run it to pay less in taxes. And you get these, and I deal with a lot of business brokers in the United States because they send me deals. And then people need an attorney, right, to close. I'm sure you do it there too, to close these deals. And I call it magic math. They're trying to alter the books of the company to try and make the argument that the business owner and his family have been taking all this money out, and it's not going to come out now because you're buying the company, and it's really not showing a loss. It's really showing $1 million of profit a year. I call it magic math because it's not real. So it's up to you to decide true or not true,
We get exactly the same here. We actually had a deal that would have been a bolt-on service to a tech platform. Would have been a great bolt-on. They were spending about $250,000 a year funding this new venture through this other company, and well, we're not going to be funding that, so there's $250,000 in profit. And there are with numbers and with it is fact. There's no fiction. You can't.
Right.
You will still get the end numbers. You can also project in the future in terms of the finances. We are not accountants, and no offense to any accountants out there, but we come at it from quite a logical perspective. There has to be some level of creativity. People run companies to pay taxes and to fund families. We're entrepreneurs by trade. We are not, I would, particularly business people per se. We are literally the definition of what your show is called. We've stumbled here. Formula to get here. We've accidentally landed where we are. Being creative, but you can't move numbers to what. And also by the argument, that's not in the P&L anymore, or that's not going to be on the balance sheet, is a really, really difficult argument to have because it's not fact yet.
Right. And one of the problems is you're buying it to build value, to create value, to maybe get financing in the future, to bring in other investors. And if you got this bridge that you have to then cross to somehow fix the way that they're accounting for the profit and loss of this company, it may be a bridge you can't cross.
Yes,
look, when the
numbers
start coming in, become real, they're not projections anymore. Yeah, you're like, well, you know what? Now that we took over, we need 3 other people to replace this guy, and there's the 250. It's gone.
And it also
or something happened.
Yeah, sorry, it changes the acquisition as well. If in circumstance you might be leveraging the balance sheet to try and get debt to the company to then relieve them of the company. Be able to do that if the finances aren't in good order. Equally, if the finances aren't in good order,
no bank or lender,
no
bank or lender is going to go with anything except what's reported to the taxing authority. That's it.
And in the same,
that's what their requirements are.
Why would Dom and I put our own money into something that isn't that accurate? It's the same argument.
exactly. You should be using, and people listening should be using the same criteria with their own money that someone who would lend you money to buy the business would use. And I know lenders, I'm sure in the UK it's the same thing. They have certain statutory requirements and federal requirements, things like that an individual would have, but you still should apply the basic principles of good sound business judgment when it comes to reviewing these businesses. I'm sorry, I just tell people, listen, if you want to, and I know the good ones that I know, they grow businesses, they pay their taxes, they do whatever they do, and they do it with the expectation of growing value and eventually exiting the business. And it becomes a lot easier when they don't play around with they make real numbers. They don't have to try and backpedal and explain what these things are. So no, I appreciate all of your comments. And it seems to be that there are similar trends by you versus in the United States. It's, business is business, right? You can't make it up. Can't make it up. I had
you can't fiddle it.
The owner was like in the 90s, I think. And they were saying the whole thing where their family in the business, not going to be in the business anymore, this whole thing. And I was helping evaluate for a client of mine. And I said, well, the biggest problem you have is you're trying to fix all this stuff. And this guy could die in the middle of the transaction. So they couldn't get their handle on the financials because they were a mess. And lo and behold, another group came in because they wanted the real estate. I forget what it was. There was a big building involved. They bought it. They didn't get through closing. The guy died. So then they had to deal with his estate and his family and the whole thing. And I don't know what happened. We decided not to move. But
funny enough,
That sounds messy.
it is what it is. Yeah. So, okay, we're coming up on an hour about. So, you guys have any last minute comments you want to make? Advice for people? How people can kind of follow you, interact with you, get in touch with you? Elliot, you go first, and then Dom, and then we'll go to credits or whatever.
Yeah, cool. So if you want to get in touch, drop us an email, Elliot, ELLIOT, @Chapman. You can follow us or drop us a connection request, Elliot Chapman or Dom Chapman. Would be similar to, I guess, the in the past, which is creating the perfect brand or the perfect website or the perfect service. Try and sell something first and deliver the service. So what we typically do with any new, create an introductory offer. Customers, it's going to be 50% off. And the reason we're going to do that,
right?
The brand new service. This is what you'll get in return.
Right.
Exactly. The market, but you're transparent about doing so. You're not selling any lies. You're transparent about what you're doing. Sell it, and then going to deliver that. Use those 5 as your guinea pig. People trying to give off their service for free.
Right.
To do that, you can get paid to do so long as you're upfront and transparent. Looking to start out or go into a different field, service-based.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a don't wait till the lights are all green to head towards town type of a thing, right?
Definitely not.
Because there are people like that. They just got to be perfect, and they use it as an excuse to never do anything.
Yeah. Pointless waiting until it's there.
Good advice, Tom.
Yeah, so mine would be slightly different because I agree with everything else said, but he's already said it. Usually I'm the one who goes first on these, so I get it in first. Mine was one thing that we haven't really touched upon in today's show, but me and Al really focus on is sort of building deep relationships with people. That's providers, that's clients, people who aren't even clients, that they're just people in the industry, and building real deep relationships and really seeing how we can help them and support them without the expectation of getting business back in. And I think over time that's helped us. We've had relationships with people nearly 10 years now that we've been supporting them, they've been supporting us. We've gone for coffees, we've gone for drinks, we've made the introductions without the expectation of it going anywhere. And I think not enough people really focus on building those long-term relationships. If they don't get something in return within a couple of months, they'll move on to the next person. And I don't think that's the attitude that you should have, because most the most fruitful relationships are the ones that you have over a long period of time. That's where the trust is built. So if you can, focus on building, long-term relationships.
Very good. Okay. And we'll put both of your emails, if that's okay, in the show notes.
Absolutely.
Stick on podcast, put all the links in there. They're not in there yet because we're live, but when I redo them. So if that's good, let's go to credit, stick around. And I thank you guys for coming on. I appreciate it very much.
Thanks for having us on, Mitch.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Accidental Entrepreneur. Opening and closing music written and performed by Howie Moskovich and made to order music. For information about Howie and his music services, please follow the link in our show notes. If you like the podcast, please tell others about us. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, on Amazon Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and most of the other podcast directories. If you like what you hear, please leave us a 5-star review and feel free to share our episodes on social media. If you have any questions or comments, ideas for the show, or you'd even like to appear as a guest, reach out to us by email at info@beinhackerlaw.com.
The Accidental Entrepreneur is hosted by Mitch Beinhacker and produced by Beinhacker Law. If you'd like to learn more about our business and legal services, you can find us on social media or visit our website at beinhackerlaw.com. Thanks for listening, and be sure to subscribe to our feed to be notified of all future episodes.